part 2 of the Spread Gun Doubles Offset Week mini-series. In this video, the passes. If you haven't seen part 1, I would definitely do that first, as the rest of this will make much more sense. This scheme is primarily a run-first scheme where we are taking advantage of the really good running mechanics in this game with a formation most people aren't used to defending the run out of. And when they eventually tighten up against it, well then we have a ton of great RPO and screen options to make them pay. And, as we'll see in this video, a ton of great passing plays to work off of also. But before we get started, I want to quickly add one more RPO to the arsenal with the RPO Power Peak. So in part 1 of this video, we briefly went over the RPO Zone Peak, which is a very similar play but slightly different, and we actually left some things out of that I wanted to go over as well. So the differences here, so I'm going over the RPO Power Peak. Obviously the difference is instead of running outside zone, we're running power. But if you also notice, the slant is a little bit elongated in the power version. So right here, it's about 7 yards. On the zone peak, it's about 5. So what that allows us to do is hit him up the field a little bit more. So he's a little bit more up the field than that linebacker that's fitting the run, and that can get involved there. And so rather than throwing a slant right into the mud of things, we can throw that a little bit more upfield. And then plus, there's a couple things that I missed in that video. And then also, the RPO power, other than the run scheme, is a little bit interesting. The handoff is a little bit delayed, so you have a little bit more time to run that read and possibly pass. And if you're worried about getting that penalty of those legal men up the field, it really doesn't happen. I've had it maybe happen once, twice, something like that. For the most part, you're going to be totally fine. So what I want to show right away is how the defense reacts to this, particularly out of the 3-4 odd cover 4 drop is obviously what you're seeing a lot. Let me just pick the right option here. Now, it won't necessarily look like this because one of these linebackers is going to be a user defender, of course, but I just want to show you if he's not. Say if you've hit him with a ton of bubble screens and he just wants to start playing this guy right here, then this could be a good option for you. You'll see how the whole defense kind of splits and you just have like acres and acres of space to run there and possibly make one of those safeties miss. So really actually underrated pass play. Like we could even, bring these safeties down, and we know that with the RPOs, those run fitting safeties, or really any run fitting defender, really struggles. He kind of hesitates a little bit, and you still have all this room to work with here. Of course, barring a block shed, you're still gonna have a lot of space. Now, when they do, come after you, so in this case, usually what I'll find when I'm running this formation is that the user defender, unless they're kind of changing something up and trying to, bait my bubble throw or something like that, usually they're on this linebacker here that's set, to the field over here, kind of in the middle of the field, and we could pretend he's fitting the run aggressively with a blitz here. So now we have this elongated slant, and you'll see how he just finds this nice pocket here that we can work off of him. Now, obviously, if you're running that over and over again, a good user will, maybe bait you and come back and lurk that. But after, just speaking from experience, after you are, running so many different reads and RPOs and shot plays and things like that, this usually isn't something they're expecting. I haven't had any issues with it. The only thing is sometimes after you catch that, some of those enforcer guys can come and take your head off. Usually I'll just possession catch and take that down. And this isn't even necessarily a great look to be running this against. Say we're coming up against these cover 3 guys where it's, a safety or cornerback there, rather than this mugging outside linebacker, and they're running their clouds and stuff like that. And then again, I'll just simulate the guy playing the run here. You'll see that you have just so much more room here, and it's a much easier read. So that's one thing. Of course, you also have the gift route over here to the boundary. Again, if you don't have that nickel or safety there, that's always going to be an easy throw for you. But perhaps most interesting, if we want to run against cover 2, this isn't going to work against cover 2, like a baseline or a press or something like that. But if you're just running somebody that's just standard cover 2, and I'm seeing a lot of that lately, particularly out of big nickel over G, just cover 2, no real adjustments or anything like that. Cornerback's 5 yards off. You can actually make that corner come down because he is, a primary run fitter, and we can smart route that in route to essentially a 10-yard dig. But we're going to throw that with a outside high point ball once that cornerback, commits. If he stays there, like say on a pass commit or he's in a different zone that we weren't expecting, then we just go ahead and hand that off. But if he doesn't, we can just go ahead and throw that there, do a little outside swerve, rack catch that, and we can get our one-play score. So that's a pretty fun way of running that. And then you could also do this last one that I showed here with the RPO zone peak. It doesn't necessarily need to be the power. Obviously, on second and short, third and short, where you can't elongate that route, it's not going to work out for you. But, first and 10, this could be something worth trying. Okay, so that's it for the RPOs. We can go to some of the passing plays now. So one of the things that is surprisingly decent here is just straight up slants here. Now, it doesn't have to be out of slants. You could come out in 4 verticals and hot route it yourself into this, but I'm just going to go with slants for the sake of it's there. Against cover 3 and cover 4, now I'm in 3-4 here, but these same principles apply to nickel and your big nickels and so on. But where our flat defender is, this overhang guy here, we can just run a straight up slant flat to the field right here, and it's a really easy 10 yards every single time. Now, it can be a little bit dangerous with the user here. He can come out and make a play on that. But as long as it's pretty quick and something that you're not running over and over again, it's going to be a good option for you. So what you're going to do is once you clear that flat defender, whether he's a hard flat, curl flat, cloud flat, whatever it is, you just wait for him to clear, throw that, and you just possession catch that and get your 10 yards. Or let's say they're running, cover 3. We can put a cloud flat out there. Just like this, same thing. We would audible to slants, flat the interior guy. As soon as you clear, throw that and just immediately go down, get your 10 easy yards. So surprisingly good concept that really I haven't used at all. I've sometimes used this out of 3x1, but out of a 2x2, I've never really used it up until recently. You could also kind of do this against Tampa 2 if you're using slants play and you go ahead and do this. You get this weird outside release on the slant, and it elongates it to kind of a post route, and you can kind of throw that there if it's 3-4 odd. Probably not the best thing to be running, but it's definitely there if you need it. You can also run the slant to the boundary. But you will want to, rather than flatting the tight end, you'll want to put him on a vertical. Let me just go back to slants here, put this guy on a vertical, probably something different on this side. And essentially that tight end is just clearing out any zones. And once your user defender is keying more towards the double side, the twin side, where most of our concept, let's face it, are, we're going to have some room to work in the boundary that we really need to work. We want to keep this balanced and keep our opponent off balance. So we're going to have this slant route, against any of these zones. You just wait for things to clear underneath and you just possession catch that, get your 9 yards. And you can run this against cover 2, really any of these zones. It doesn't really matter. Even, man coverage, those slants can get open. Again, you're running this guy off here. And you'll see the slant finds this nice spot right underneath where hopefully that your opponent is vacating from. And that's it for slants. Don't want to spend too much time on that. But it is kind of interesting. It's not something that you usually think to do, but it's something you could bake into. Even if you're not using this formation, you could bake that into your own playbook, whatever you're in. The other thing I want to go into here is 4 verticals. I won't spend too much time on it because I did a video on 4 verticals essentially very recently, particularly how we can get this slot wide receiver free up the seam against cover 3. So what we do there is, if we're setting him to the field right here, we would just put him on a hot route fade. And usually you can get the nice outside release against that slot defender. And whether he's in curl flat or whatever, in this case, he actually got an inside release, but we're able to still, get that easy, quick 15-20 yard gain. But I want to spend a little bit more time talking about attacking cover 2 with 4 verticals because out of these spread sets, it's not necessarily obvious how you attack cover 2 because you don't really have the luxury of a lot of those great compressed corner routes or those crossing routes or anything like that. But there are still a lot of ways that we can attack it. And one of those ways is with a comeback route to the boundary right here. I've went over this a few times, this comeback route. If you meet some of those thresholds, like 90 deep route running, 90 release, he's able to get a nice outside release around that cloud corner and you can throw that up the sideline right here. Just right when he gets that, outside pass, toe tap that, and you get your easy 15, 20 yards. And even if they move this guy way out wide over here, this safety, like say let's put this safety way over here. In this case, we just go ahead and run the ball, but say if you need a first down or something like that, he still comes back inside. Like you could even run this tight end right at him. You'll see that because that route's kind of delayed a bit, you still have a lot of free space there. And of course, if they're running hard flats, it's just going to be a lot more open. But what you see a lot nowadays is soft squats right here. So he will match vertically with that comeback, but you have a couple options there. If we're running 4 verticals right here where the number 2 is on a vertical, the soft squat's going to match. Assuming you have a little bit of time in the pocket, some of these pass rushes, it can be difficult, but at the end of the day, it is man coverage and that comeback's going to get open. Or another way you can go about it, so cover 2, soft squat right here. We would still run the comeback over here to the boundary, but instead of a vertical from number 2, we put the tight end to the flat, and that's going to cause the soft squat to jump down on the flat, and it's just going to run more space over here for the comeback route for a bit of an extra gain. You could also play around with the field cover 2 cornerback. What I would do in this case, I would make sure I watch this safety right here. If it's one of these base sets, he's going to be aligned on the hash or inside the hash, and he's never going to be able to make a play down the sideline. If it's like a nickel normal or something like that, he's out here, and it's much, much more difficult. So I'd watch out here. The boundary is always going to be there, easy yards, but if you want to switch it up a little bit, you can just run straight up 4 verticals here. That fade will get an outside release against that corner, and once he gets cleared there, you can just go ahead and catch that down the sideline. And the last thing I'll say about that is that if they are running press right here, so cover 2 press, and let's actually move this guy back because they generally wouldn't do that. I would go back to the comeback route over here because it gets really, really nicely open. Again, if it's a soft squat, this won't work out over the top, but we would just wait for him to break that off again because that's man coverage. Comeback's going to get open against that. But against cloud flats or hard flats, he gets open really nice down the sideline here, and sometimes we could even rack that up the field if we're a bit lucky, but either way. And a couple more things I'll just quickly say about cover 2 here. You don't really see the middle third adjustments a lot of this because this is primarily running formation, so you are going to have a lot of looks deep in the middle of the field because usually the user is this mid-read, and he's usually not very, he's a little bit more aggressive underneath usually. So we can actually attack that vertical hook right here. Usually he's got to run with number 2 up the field, but we can kind of bug him out a little bit. Going back to 4 verticals here, we can just run a drag from number 1 over here, and that will cancel his assignment to carry number 2 up the field. And out of 4 verticals, this route is particularly good because it kind of bends outside and inside. So he gets open in this nice, really sweet spot, and you can smart route that to have an even better route. You can run just a regular streak here, but I like this better. In particular, I'm trying to find a lot more concepts to the boundary here, to the tight end side here, because most of this stuff is to the field. We want a few more options there. I've actually put my one of my abilities on the tight end there, so that if he gets in these catch and traffic situation, he's always going to come down with it. And then when they eventually, because you also see a lot of this max blitz coverage, man coverage stuff, because they want to defend the RPOs and they want to defend the run. Well, then you can have some options like, you don't need it, but what I'll do, I'll put out specialist on the tight end right here. So no matter who's on him, he's always going to win in man coverage. Kittle doesn't have it here, but you can see it's an easy gain every single time. Or you could smart route that to 10 yards. It doesn't really matter because he's a tight end. He's not going to get jammed ever. And that out route is nice and quick, especially if you have the in-out specialist, out corner specialist. He's always going to get open there. Okay, so that's it for 4 verticals. I'm going to quickly show PA bubble Y over before we get into the really, really good stuff here. This isn't the greatest play, but there's something I kind of like about it. Against most of these zones, this crosser gets open deep. Usually the user can guard that, but it's still something I like to throw in every once in a while if they're over-aggressive somewhere else. But you probably noticed that it has this nice fade from the previous years, which goes really, really well with the pump fake. Or you can go to the play H shallow cross, which also has it. And so what I would do is, usually you can put this guy on a zig. if you are against cover 3 or something. Against 3-4 odd, this defender is kind of close and he kind of mugs him. So you can put, you know, this other guy on a zig, and if you have sleight of hand on your quarterback, you got a nice one-play touchdown against pretty much most of the zones. Or a little underrated concept here is running a drag across the field, and then if there's a hard flat waiting for him over there, you got a curl over above that you just smart route that into. Otherwise, you know, you just pick up your 5 easy yards every single time with that shallow. But primarily that's just there as a quick audible if I'm coming up against cover 3 or cover 4, and I know they're not pass committing because they're trying to stop my run. It's always good there for a fun little glitchy one-play score, assuming again you have those options with sleight of hand. Now, getting into the really, really good plays, this is Sail. So I went over a play similar to this before. This play has options everywhere. I could probably make a whole video that's an hour long just on this, but I'll try not to do that. So let's quickly work to the boundary here. This zig and dig combination is a great high-low. Usually the user's preoccupied with all the route combinations going to the left, and you just got lots of room to work with. Against man coverage, that zig is always going to get open. If you have it in specialist, which you know I don't, but if you do onto the boundary here, he's always going to get open against man coverage. But otherwise, so let's just say, you know, cover 4, whether on cover 3 or cover 2, it's pretty much going to work the same. You're reading the flat guy. If he's dropping, you have, you know, the easiest 5, 6, 7 yards over here that you can possibly get. And if they're running hard flats or even regular flats, that dig can usually get above everybody, assuming again that user isn't there. But you know, you'll just have all this space here. Watch out for the enforcer, of course, and get your 15 yards. So that's awesome. This halfback route I made a whole video on. He gets open pretty much against anything. So if we go ahead and say just run regular zone coverage here, he gets underneath any of those flats, and he gets nice leverage out here that you can usually hit him in stride and get, you know, 5 to 10 more yards. Sometimes even if they're running hard flats, you can hit it kind of early as he's, you know, in this kind of first intermediate part of his route before he hits outside. You can usually hit that quick and up the field. Or, you know, if you're coming up against man coverage, this is against the linebacker, but even against the best corners, assuming you don't have a slouch at running back, he's just gonna toast this guy every single time. See all that separation over here. Again, we're catching that in stride and getting more yards than we even catch. And then you have this inside release, inside stem corner route, which is awesome because it buys time for that corner, whether he's cover 3 or cover 4, to be pushed back. And its combination with the post is really, really good because the post is stretching that corner vertically and horizontally. Whereas, you know, if we're running just a regular sail concept right here, he's only going vertically so that he can, you know, with the eyes behind his back, you know, 99 zone coverage awareness, all that stuff will come down and usually make a play on that corner. But because of it's a post, he kind of comes inside a little bit and we can hit him to the outside, make him lose his momentum in 2 ways. So this will usually be good for you for against cover 4, cover 3. Cover 2, you know, that corner does a good job of sinking underneath that corner route. But again, you have this halfback route, which is so good right here. That's always going to get you 5, 10, 15 yards. And then if we want to get really glitchy with this, if we have, again, sleight of hand, we have a zig route here that's part of the concept. Okay, so we need this zig route to get that pump fake animation to work. In this case, it's not like that H shallow crossplay. It's actually part of the concept. So if things don't really work out, we still have a lot of other options to work with. Whereas, you know, the other play, it was really a bad concept other than the fact that, you know, it can get us those easy scores. But in this case, I would just, you know, pump fake that zig right after you snap it. I would convert that post to just a regular streak right there. And what's great, the zig's coming from the tight end here. So the first motion is actually pretty quick. And he can never get jammed. So you don't have to worry about him, you know, elongating his route and messing up with everything. You just go ahead and pump fake, get open over the top. It doesn't work out as well, but you still can get your big play from that. And if it doesn't work out, in this case it might not, but we'll show you that you can just start to work in your other progressions right here. So if you think it doesn't work out, you still have the corner and the halfback route plus the dig and the zig on the other side. So that sale, again, there's a lot more to it that we can go over, but we don't want to make this video too long. The next play is switch. Fantastic play. Doesn't really have too much going for you to the boundary right here, but the field is a really awesome combination right here. So this is primarily going to be good against, well, pretty much everything. I'll show you here. Cover 4, it's not so good, but against cover 4 and cover 3, that post that inside release post gets really open on its vertical stem, and if he has post specialist, he's never going to drop that ball. Where this is really good though is cover 3, and it doesn't matter what type of flat they're in, curl flat, hard flat, whatever, that post is going to get open, unless of course that hook that's a user defender might get involved, but hopefully that in route from Kittle is preoccupying him a little bit. But this is going to work similarly to my 4 verticals concept, where you are free up the seam where cover 3 should be weak, and it actually is. So right here, you just go ahead and throw that. You could even rack catch that for more. Again, watch out for the enforcer, but it's going to be there. And we know that wheels and post are particularly great against man coverage. The post more so if you actually have post specialist, but the wheel is great. So say if we're coming out in cover 4 palms right here, we're going to have that cornerback try to trap the wheel. We got sacked there, but that was free over the top. And then cover 3 match, you don't see a lot of, but I'm just going to throw this out there. These switch concepts, these wheels with a slant or a post from the other guy, cover 3 match really doesn't do a good job at. It really bugs out, and you can find a nice sweet spot to the outside there. But again, usually it's just going to be the curl flats or hard flats if you are coming up against cover 3. And because the seam route is coming from the outside, a user usually doesn't come to it, and if you have that post specialist, that's always going to be money for you. Against cover 2, it's not really good. Like, it can be great, but it just requires some time. Again, what I was saying is, because this is a run first formation, run first scheme, you don't see a lot of this deep middle third stuff from the middle linebacker. Usually the user is there, and usually he's not really running the pull like he should be. He's underneath on his Kittle route or whatever. So if you have a little bit of time in the pocket, sometimes it's tough with these crazy pass rushers, but if you have a little bit of time, this is usually going to be a big play for you. And then of course, just to round it off here, let's go cover 0 or cover 1 or whatever. If we just, get the right protection here, that wheel route will be able to get open over the top, assuming we can again buy time in the pocket and get our 1-play score that way. And so that is switch. Moving right along to PA Dagger. PA Dagger is a really good play here. It's play action, and I wouldn't actually cancel the play action, because how this works is that we want to hit that really deep dig there, that 15-yard dig, because that's going to get underneath any deep zones, above any underneath zones. And again, because like the play action doesn't affect anybody, but if we are running heavily, it might slow down this user just enough so that he's not coming all the way over here and working that dig. But this is something you can definitely work in. As long as that user doesn't get involved, you're going to get open. What I would do is, something like you could run a mesh underneath right here, just because I want to guarantee that, first of all, I don't want this streak to get in the way. The other thing is that it'll help a little bit in terms of backup options and holding that user a little bit. But this is just always going to get open against zone coverage. Even in cover 2, that dig is going to get pressed, but it's still going to work out really nicely. You might want to maybe consider something like this. This actually might be a better setup in general, to run off any of those guys, run off the mid read, run off the user a little bit, and you'll just see all this space right here. Catch that 15, 20 yards. All right, 2 more plays. We're moving right along here. Motion Z spot right here is really interesting. I did a video on the spot concept a bit ago. It's really good. I don't like this play too much because the alignment is different. So if I'm audibling out, it's kind of a tell. Plus, it just doesn't really flow with the rest of it. But it's definitely a nice formation. Like, that spot route is always going to get open against these zones. It finds this nice sweet spot that the hard flats or the curls or anything like that, they just can't really get involved with, and you're always going to have that as long as the user's not there. And if they're running hard flats, you will have the option to hit that corner sometimes. So in this case, you would just throw the corner right here, down low. It's there if you want it. And then what's cool is that sometimes that motion, that push motion from the running back will kind of set the user linebacker who might be over here to push a little bit to that side. In that case, you would just work the other side. And this hitch, unless they're running hard flats against any of these zones, it's going to get open. You just got to kind of wait for that flat defender to clear a little bit, and you can just throw that underneath. If it's a hard flat, you hit the corner above him. And last but not least is the Orbit PAX spot. This meshes well with the little Orbit read play that I showed in the last video, because it's pretty much the same thing, except you don't have it's just a straight up play action pass. You have that spot concept again. If our user kind of stays in the middle of the field, that little snag, little spot right here is always going to get open, similar to that smash. Just gets open nice underneath those zones. And what's cool is if they're running hard flats against any of these zones, cover 3, 4, 2, you'll actually have, not only will the corner be open, but the snag will be open as well, because the hard flat comes down on this flat from Thomas over here. So you got actually 2 options in that case, which is really, really nice. In certain situations, if the user really is aggressive, like you hit him a few times with that screen and he goes out to play over there to play, the corner and the snag, then you have this backside post to work in off of that as kind of a last option. Not the greatest, but it's there if they're really over aggressive on that side. Okay, so that's it for this video. I know it's another long one, but this formation is just filled with so much stuff. Each of these plays I could have went on for much more, different setups, different ways you can run it. But I'll leave that to you guys to play around with. But I want to give you guys options, because again, this is something that is going to be different for every one of you guys. If you want to run certain plays than others, or certain opponents that you're up against, certain plays are more conducive to it. But you have endless amounts of options, and that's why I like it so much. It's a lot of fun. These RPOs, these runs are really, really fun, and then you have these great passing plays off of that. So that's it. That's the kind of first main 1 and 2 parts. In the last one we'll go over after this is just some of the other nice plays in the other books that have this formation, if you want to consider the other books. But other than that, that's it for this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.